So this bus driver drives straight into a forest and crashes into a tree, and everybody dies. He's taken to custody, and the investigator asks this bus driver, "What were you thinking? Why'd you drive straight into a tree?" So he said, "Because there was a cow right in front of me on the road. So why didn't you just run over the cow?" "I wanted to, but then the cow ran into the forest." There are a lot of things that we are conditioned to thinking about a certain way, and then it doesn't matter what happens. Just because we're used to thinking about things a certain way, we gravitate to that thought process, and then we never are able to see it differently, because sometimes it's like a groove in your brain that when A happens, then B goes, and then C, and you can't look at it objectively because you've gotten used to a certain pattern. You just follow that route. I don't know how it never dawned on me, but the Talmud says when the month of Av enters, it's supposed to decrease in joy. So it always hits me as it's a sad month. It's a sad month, right? That's my first reaction to those words. I never thought about it. Really, the Talmud is saying something very fundamental here, not just for the month of Av. The Talmud is saying, you know what? Jews have to always be happy. There always has to be simcha. There always has to be joy. Even in the month of Av, where there are a lot of halachas, a lot of laws about how we decrease in joy, we don't listen to music, and we don't take a haircut, and we don't have weddings during these 9 days. But the Talmud is not saying that you shouldn't have any joy. The Talmud is saying, on the contrary, the Talmud said you have to have simcha, you have to have joy, but you should have less joy. But the Talmud is also saying it's oxygen. Joy is oxygen. So the month of Av also has to have joy, just it's less. You ever thought about that way? I never thought about that way. It just hit me just a few days ago. There's a similar, more powerful concept that the Rabbi said, quoting other Hasidic masters. They said like this: when the month of Av enters, we have to decrease in all the calamities that have happened in the month of Av. We have to stop all the negative things that have happened in this month. How do we lessen all these calamities? By adding in simcha, by adding in joy. And that's why during this month we have, for the first 15 days of the month, we have a celebration in shul every day. Someone's finishing another book of Gemara. It's not just like a ploy to let's find a way to be happy. It's more like the month of Av is actually a time when Mashiach will be the time of the greatest simcha, greatest joy, greater than all the other holidays. And therefore, as Mashiach approaches, the Rebbe says we should try to find ways to reveal the inner joy, the inner happiness that's in this time. But let's talk about something maybe more palatable. Well, I shouldn't say more palatable. I should say less palatable, but more easily to understand. And that is, why is it? What's gained by being in exile? What's the point of the exile in the first place? Or let's ask us on a personal level, what's the point of Hashem putting a person in a situation where there is no light? They don't see light in their life. They don't see Hashem's light. They don't see Hashem's presence. Why does Hashem place a person in that kind of scenario? What's the point of that? So there's actually halacha. Halacha is that the day before the 9th of Av, you don't say tachnun. Usually on a holiday, we don't say the confessionary prayers. But the day before the 9th of Av, you also omit the confessionary prayers. And the question is, it's not a happy day. It's a day we say kinus, we say all the lamentations about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. We recount events that make your hair raise on its end. It's incredible tragedies that we talk about, and we fast. And yet the Talmud says the day before the 9th of Av, the mincha, the afternoon prayer before the 9th of Av, you should omit the confessionary prayers like you do on a holiday. More, it says on the 9th of Av itself, don't say the confessionary prayers. On Shabbos, we don't say the confessionary prayers. On Pesach, on Shavuos, on Sukkot, on the holidays, we don't say the confessionary prayers. But why on the 9th of Av, which is such a sad day, it seems, why do we not say the confessionary prayers? The confessionary prayers are prayers which are introspective. You tell Hashem that you're sorry for doing A, B, and C. So on holidays, it's not appropriate. But why on the 9th of Av, which seems to be so sad, why do we skip those confessionary prayers? So the Talmud says, because it's called in the Torah, in Echan, in Lamentations, the Torah calls it a holiday. The Torah calls it a moed. It doesn't really answer the question. The question just gets transferred to the book of Book of Lamentations. Why is it called a holiday? Okay, we don't say the confessionary prayers because it's called a holiday. So don't call it a holiday. What's the meaning of it being a holiday, and therefore we don't say confessionary prayers? You get the question? If it's a holiday, so you don't say confessionary prayers. But it doesn't seem to be such a holiday. It seems to be a day that we fast and days when tragedies have happened. So what's the meaning of us skipping this confessionary prayers as if we're pretending it's a happy day when it doesn't seem to be a happy day? So we'll understand this by looking at the end of the tractate Makos. A story, a famous story, you've heard, I'm sure, many times before, but there's a lot of nuances in the story. You'll see that there's the depth over here in the story which beyond what meets the eye. The Talmud says that Rabbi Akiva was walking together with 4 other sages, and they got to a place called Sofim, a place where from there you could see the temple. But at that time the temple had already been destroyed, and the sages, seeing the place of the temple's destruction, they began to cry. And Rabbi Akiva began to laugh.
Because they saw the fox?
Right. They saw a fox running across the Temple Mount in the same place of the Holy of Holies, and they were crying. And they said to Rabbi Akiva, "Why are you laughing?" Rabbi Akiva said, "Why are you crying?" And they said to him, "We're crying because this is the holiest place in the world, the most special place in the world, and now foxes are going in this place where only the Kohen Gadol could go once a year. Of course we're crying. Why are you laughing?" So Akiva said that there were 2 prophets. There was Uriah and there was Zechariah. And they both gave these incredible prophecies. One very negative and one was very positive. Zechariah spoke about how the temple will be destroyed and Zion will become like a plowed field. Zion will become like a plowed field. And the prophet Uriah said that when Mashiach will come, men and women will go in the streets of Yerushalayim and they will sing, and there'll be joy, there'll be happiness again in the streets of Jerusalem. So Rabbi Akiva said, the prophecy of the coming of Mashiach, I didn't know if it would be fulfilled until I saw the other prophecy be fulfilled. When I saw the other prophecy be fulfilled, then I knew this prophecy would also be fulfilled. That's what Akiva said. So the other sages said, the Talmud says they said in this language, the Talmud is very precise, it says they said in this language, Akiva, you have comforted us, Akiva, you have comforted us. That's the story in the Talmud. Now you look at the story, it has some message on the face value. Akiva is very positive, looking at the future. But if you look at it a little deeper, there's a couple of questions that come to your head immediately. Why is he laughing? He's laughing, I mean, because he believes in the future, but right now the temple isn't yet built. The temple has been destroyed. The temple is there are foxes running around the Temple Mount. Why is there laughter? Number 2, he's asking them why they're crying, like they don't, as if like he doesn't understand. And also, it sounds like they didn't believe. Like he believed, they didn't believe. Like, why didn't they believe? They're the sages of Israel. They didn't believe. And Rabbi Akiva also sounds like he didn't believe. He says, I didn't know what was going to happen until the other prophecy happened. What's going on over here? They don't believe. He doesn't believe. When the first prophecy happens, then he believes in the second prophecy. What's going on over here? So the emphasis really over here, the key to the whole puzzle, is the words of the prophet of Zechariah. He said, Zion will become like a plowed field. What's the meaning of the word a plowed field? What does plowing do? Why do you plow? You plow a field to prepare the field to plant in that field. When you plow the field, there are those who are familiar with agriculture can tell you that when you plow the field, there's some stones which you get thinner through the process of plowing. The soil gets more porous, and the water can reach the different parts of the soil. The weeds are taken out, and therefore it's easier for the plants that are planted there to grow. So plowing the field does a lot to prepare for great for the seeds to take root and to blossom, to grow, and to become and for trees to grow. So the Rabbi Kiva was really saying was that there's a connection between the destruction and the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. He wasn't just saying that there will one day be the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. That we knew without Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva was saying that the process of the destruction itself was part of the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. It wasn't just there was first a destruction and later Hashem will bring the coming of Mashiach. He was saying something else. He was saying that the destruction itself is part of the process of building the third Beis Hamikdash. There was a Chabad center that was being built in this town. The Shliach was saying that when they started to lay the foundation, people came and they kissed the stones. They're so excited. They put up a wall and kissed the wall. They're so excited. Their center, their Chabad house, their shul is going to be built. They were so excited. By a wedding, the Chas and Kala come to the chuppah, and people, good friends of the Chas and Kala, they come and they want to hold the poles of the chuppah, and they want to, and their faces, are shining, and they're laughing, and they're happy, and they're so happy to build the place where the Chas and Kala, to be there, to be part of it, to create that space where the Chas and Kala get married, to be part of creating something beautiful. Everyone is very happy to be a part of it. So they don't have to encourage the friends to go over there to kiss the chassan and kiss the kala. They want to be there. It's a beautiful thing. So Rabbi Kiva was telling us something over here. He was saying to us that when things stop you from being where you want to be in life, and you feel like you're stuck and you can't go forward, Rabbi Kiva was telling us that is exactly where Hashem is building your coming of Mashiach. Just like the coming of Mashiach for all of us is through the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, that's how it happens. There's even a halacha. Halacha is that you're not allowed to destroy your shul. It's forbidden. You're not allowed to destroy even one stone of a shul. And it says about the Beis Hamikdash that the Nebuchadnezzar and his armies, they couldn't really do anything to the Beis Hamikdash. The one who lit the fire was God. And the question is, how could God light the fire? And the answer is, God keeps His own Torah. If God says we can't light the fire and destroy the Beis Hamikdash, destroy the temple, how could He? And the answer is because the purpose of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was really to remodel it, to make an everlasting third Beis Hamikdash that will never be destroyed again. So in the moment of the destruction, what is that moment really? It's a moment of plowing. It's a moment that's part and parcel of the rebuilding. So Rabbi Kiva really had a very deep soul, and he's able to see far beneath the veneer of the physical reality. And he sees in the moment of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, he sees something else entirely going on. He sees how this is really about the coming of the third Beis Hamikdash, how the coming of Mashiach. So imagine on ourselves when we're in a situation where we feel like we can't go any further and we can't get out of the situation. Imagine if you felt that Hashem was telling you, where you are right now is where you need to be right now, because right now Mashiach is coming for you. This is a place of Mashiach. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I can't really say the details because it's too personal. His story is too personal. But the moment in his life where everything was going wrong, everything was getting destroyed, was actually like the hello. That really was the best. Like, he could see it. He could see how that was the moment that opened up all the doors for him in his life. That really, like, his life is really wonderful. It was those moments where he was like, oh, why is this happening to me? Everything's ruining. He was crying. I remember crying with him. These terrible things were, and those moments, it turned out, those were what planted the seeds for the future for him. And this is really how it is in everything. In high school, in mathematics, I don't know how you were in high school. When I was in high school, at one point, there was, actually even in the 8th grade, the back of the math book, all the answers, right? You know what I'm talking about? But you got no points for getting the answers right. In fact, you got the answers wrong, but the teacher saw how you did it, you got points. Why is that? Because the point isn't really getting to the conclusion, the point is the journey on the way. And that's what Rabbi Kiva was telling the sages. He was telling them, this is part of the journey, this is part of it. That's where Mashiach is coming. Mashiach is not coming in the future. Mashiach is coming where you are here right now, in that part which you can't stand. You want it to change. He was telling us, look forward towards the future. Look for a way out, because this is your moment. This is a moment of rebuilding. There's a pasuk we say every day, several times a day. Love Hashem with all your heart. And the Sifri says, your heart should not be at an argument with Hashem. That's what he says. Your heart should not be an argument with Hashem. You should love Hashem with all your heart. The words of the Sifri are, Lo tia libcha chalok al hamakom. Your heart should not be at an argument with hamakom. Hamakom is usually a word the Talmud uses to describe God, but there are other words to describe God, like Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem. The word hamakom is very specific. You're in a situation. You're in that place that you hate being in. You're with a person that you don't like being with. You're with your own deficiencies, your own lack of talent that you feel you're missing, and you want things to change in yourself. And you have the scenario that you don't like, the place you don't like, the things you don't like, and everything is exactly the way you don't like it. It's that space you don't like. So the meaning of loving Hashem with all your heart means that you say, Hashem put me here where I am right now, in this specific spot, because this is the spot of Geula, this is the spot of Mashiach, this is the spot of redemption. Here, not the one that you want to get to. When are you going to get to? That will happen too. But that's not how Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes in the place of the exile. Mashiach comes in the place which gets plowed. In 2016, in the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, there was a 5,000 meter race between in the Olympics, and there were two runners, the women's race, one from New Zealand, one from America. The race began, they bumped into each other and they both fell on the ground. So they get back up and they start running again. And the woman from New Zealand, I think it was, she again falls down. And the woman from America falls down. The woman from New Zealand, instead of, you imagine preparing for the Olympics, her whole life is to be at this moment in the Olympics. And she turns around and she forgets about the Olympics, she forgets about everything else, and she goes and she gives this lady a hand. This lady who couldn't go, and she says, let's continue together. Let's go, let's finish this race. And they walked together, they couldn't run. They walked together, she needed help. They got a wheelchair eventually, but they walked, and the judges had enough seichel to let them join the finals. It wasn't something that they were really earned officially, but they could see beneath the surface of this point that it's not always about the bottom line, the end result. It's the end result is built by the journey towards the end result. This will help us understand something else. The Rambam says that Mashiach will come all the days of the calamities that have happened to Jewish people, the calamity of Tzem HaRevi, Tzem HaChamishi, Tzem HaSiri, the calamities that happened with the death of Gedaliah, and the 10th of Tavis when the Jerusalem was under siege, and the 17th of Tammuz when the walls of Jerusalem were broken, and the 9th of Av when the temple was destroyed. All those days, the Rambam says, when Mashiach will come, there will no longer be days of sadness. Instead, the Rambam says, there will be days of great joy. Now, it makes sense there won't be days of sadness anymore, because nothing to be sad about. The temple was destroyed, now the temple is no longer destroyed. But why will they be the days of joy? Why would they be especially happy? Why are they happy days? They're not sad days anymore, because we're not missing those things that those days brought about. But why are they especially happy days? The answer is that there are two different kinds of comfort. Someone, God forbid, their house gets burned down. So they have insurance, and the house is rebuilt, and the house is even better than the house had before. But they still had that moment where they were upset. They still had that moment where they were grieving over their lost house. They still didn't have. There was a time when they were missing something. It wasn't like everything was always good. There was a time of calamity. The meaning of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash being compared to plowing a field means that this moment itself of destruction is part of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore, when Mashiach will come, we're going to see how the calamities themselves are part of the building. They're part of the Geula. There's a passage in the Talmud. The Talmud says Mashiach will come, all the sacrifices will cease. We won't have any more sacrifices. There's only one sacrifice that we'll continue to have. Which sacrifice? the sacrifice of the korban toida, the thanks offering. Now, the thanks offering is an offering you bring when you survive something, when someone survives an illness, when someone survives a car crash, when someone survives a sea journey, when someone survives prison, they bring the thanks offering. When you survive a calamity, you bring the thanks offering. Mashiach will come, there won't be any calamities to survive anymore. There won't be anything threatening us anymore. So why will we have to bring this thanks offering? And the answer is, we're going to bring the thanks offering, Mashiach will come, for the exile. We're going to thank Hashem for all different things that happened to us during the exile. We'll realize then, Mashiach will come, how this is. To build a beautiful house takes work. The more beautiful, the more extravagant, the more detailed, the more amazing the house is, the more work that's needed. Can you imagine? We're working this whole Golus, the entire thousands of years, all over the world with mitzvahs and Torah. It's to create something that we can't imagine how beautiful it will be. And so Mashiach will come. Of course, those days of these calamities will become Yom Tovim, because we'll see how those days themselves were the beginning of the everlasting goodness and sweetness of the coming Mashiach. There was, unfortunately, during a few months ago in Lag Baimer, when all those Yidden in Miron, Chemol al passed away, one of them is actually a relative, a friend of mine. His name is Menachem Zegbach, and he was visited by this. His family was visited after he passed away by a scribe. Someone writes Torah at Mezuzahs. He visits the family, and they tell him, and they tell everyone visiting the house, that their son, who had passed away, Menachem, was 16 years old. They tell him that Menachem, when he would always make sure, whenever he said the grace after meals, the Berachas Hamazon, the benching, he'd always wouldn't just say it. He would say it from a siddur. He would say it from a siddur. And by the way, it's a good thing to do for many reasons. Among them, the Rebbe said that that's a school for parnasa. It's a good way to bring blessing for your finances, is to use a siddur when you say the grace after meals. So this sofer, this Torah scribe, yes, go ahead.
Could it be a phone that has to work? Or it has to be
You mean reading it, or necessarily from the siddur, or reading it instead of Balpeh?
I think reading it is good. I think reading it from the siddur is even better than reading it from the phone. Although I shouldn't speak because I'm very guilty of reading from my phone all the time. But I think reading from the siddur is much better. There's a beautiful pasuk in the Megillah. It says that Omer Masefer Yosha Machshav Te'erov Asol Oisev Zban V'Leitz, which means that the Megillah recounts how when they came to the king said that all of the bad thoughts that Haman had for the Jewish people should go back upon Haman, and he and his children were hung. So the Rebbe once said that Omer Masefer, the Megillah says he said it with a book. The king said it, he inscribed it in his come before the king, speak to him with a sefer, with a book, and then all the negative thoughts, or whatever thoughts you have in your head, you're looking at the sefer, it helps to concentrate, it helps you to think about Hashem. But yes, I think a phone would definitely be almost as good as a siddur. Okay, so this sofer, he comes home, and he wants to say the after blessing. He wants to eat, but he has no siddur. What should he do? So he's looking through his house, he's rummaging through his attic, trying to find a siddur. He wants hungry, and he doesn't want to go out and try to go, borrow a siddur. It's late at night. He just wants to eat. But he made his decision. He's not going to eat without saying the after blessing from a siddur. What should he do? So he finally finds this beautiful this writing of someone had written the Berachas Hamazon, the benching, in Ksav Ashuras, the same letters that are written to used to write a Sefer Torah. Someone had written this beautiful Ksav, this beautiful writing of the Berachas of the after blessing. He wrote the whole benching in the same kind of script that we use to write a Sefer Torah. So he's very impressed with the script, and he gets a phone call. And someone was interested in him writing a Torah. Okay, he goes to and he said, "Can we see a sample?" He shows them the sample, and I guess it's an Israeli kind of thing to say, but they said to him, "We like your writing, but the finish, you're missing in your finish." That's like the worst kind of thing to say. It's like, someone said, "You're almost good enough." Anyways, he goes home. He does not get that job, Anyways, he goes, looks again at that bencher, and he says, "This is such a beautiful writing." And he spends 3 hours trying to copy this writing. He copies this writing for 3 hours, working on this beautiful, beautiful writing, and then he gets another call the next morning. There was many people that want to write a Torah in memory of every person that passed away in Miron, and they called him. They asked him if he could also write a Torah in memory of one of those people who passed away. And yeah, they call him up and can you write a Torah in honor of Menachem Zeglach? That boy that who had always prayed benching with the Siddur, that boy was the one that he was designated, not by any, not because the family was someone else designated him. We need to write a Torah in memory of this boy. So the meaning of a joke, of laughter, of humor, is when you see something that's unexpected. You see something which is a good joke is when there's an unexpected line, like an example I said before, the joke I said before about the bus running, the cow running in the forest. It's unexpected. That's why it's funny. In a similar way, Hashem also in life, it says Hashem guides the world towards the time of laughter. Mashiach is called a time of everlasting laughter. It says Mashiach will come, we won't stop laughing. Our mouth will be full of laughter. What's this laughter about? We won't be able to stop laughing. Doesn't mean that we're going to, get laughing so hard that we're going to lose our breath. It means we'll be so happy, but it doesn't say we'll be happy. It says we'll be laughing. What's the idea of laughing is that we're going to see something unexpected in all those different tragic things that happened to us in the exile. We're going to see all those things that we thought were so horrible. We're going to see how they were so good, they were so wonderful. Eli Wiesel, the famous Nobel Prize winner, was once in an audience with Rabbi, and Rabbi asked him if he needs any blessings. And he told the Rebbe, doesn't need any blessing. The conversation continued. And then he had his change of heart, and he said to the Rebbe, there is something I want you to bless me with. I want you to bless him to be able to cry. After Buchenwald, after he lost his father, and all the different tragedies he had seen in Buchenwald and the Holocaust, many Holocaust survivors are not able to cry because the grief is so extreme that they're not able to bring it into their heart. It's just too much, and it doesn't make it any better. It makes it worse. There are uncried tears that leave this emptiness and this brokenness that can never come to themselves. So he asked the Rebbe for a blessing to be able to cry. What did the Rebbe said? Before we go into the Rebbe's answer, I just want to say one more point to understand what the Rebbe said to him. Rabbi Akiva, with his depth and seeing the scenario of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash as part of the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, he opened the horizons for the sages, and that's why they said to him twice, "You have comforted us." They didn't just say it once. Being comforted once means that you lost something, and now you've regained what you lost before, but you still had that experience of the negativity that you lost in the first place. They said you comforted us twice. Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us twice. Why? Because he revealed to them how even the moments of destruction are also part of the rebuilding of Beis Hamikdash. They're also part of the good moments too. There's... I'm sure you're familiar with how Post-it notes were created. There was this gentleman who was trying to create this really strong glue, and he couldn't, and it didn't work. And there was a guy working at this factory who also was part of an orchestra. And this guy who was part of the orchestra, he was the conductor, and he would always leave notes on the instruments of all the people in his orchestra. This note should be stronger, you should play this better, and you at least always leave them notes. And when in the factory this glue didn't work, he said, let me try something with that glue. And he used that glue to make notes for the people in his orchestra for their instruments. And that became the multi-million-dollar company Post-it notes. So it was the same exact moment. It wasn't that first it was something that was lost, then something else was gained. It was the thing itself that was lost that really was a greater gain than had it been that original glue that they wanted it to be. I think they wanted to use it for aircraft parts. Anyways, that's what did Rabbi tell Eli Wiesel? Rabbi told Eli Wiesel, it's not enough for you to learn how to cry. I want to bless you. You should be able to sing. It's not enough for you to be able to cry, for you to be able to process the destruction and to be able to move away from it. Rabbi wanted him to be able to also to sing. That he should, something should be rebuilt from the experience itself. There should be a song created out of it. And actually, Eli Wiesel, many years later, he made this full-page article in the New York Times headed with the words "I believe," and in that article, he wrote how he wrote a song, and the song he wrote how in the temple after the sacrifices are offered, he says there are ashes, and from those ashes we have to be able to create a temple. In other words, from the moments of the destruction itself, that's when Mashiach comes from. So the Rebbe's blessing was fulfilled in him. The Rebbe said to him, I don't just want to bless you to be able to cry. It's not enough. You also have to be able to sing. As a Kotzker Rebbe said, it says in the Talmud, if someone says, I tried and I haven't been successful, don't believe them. If someone said, I haven't tried and I was successful, don't believe them either. If someone said, I've tried and I was successful, then believe them. The Kotzker Rebbe said, what does that mean? Sometimes you try and you're not successful. The Kotzker Rebbe says, whenever you try, you discover something. Maybe you don't get the thing that you wanted, but there's something else that's discovered, something else that changes. And in your effort itself, that you looked and you tried for something, there's something, that journey itself, that's something that's created by your effort. So as we are in this time of we're waiting for Mashiach to come. Mashiach hasn't yet arrived. There's something Hashem wants us to do. Hashem wants us to open the horizons in ourselves and look at different things in our life that we say that it has to be different. It can't be this way, and embrace them and realize that the Eibishter, that Hashem puts us in these scenarios and to. Okay, I'm going to ruin this with a story because it's a hard story to understand, but it's hard to understand life as well. I think I shared this story with you before. There was a boy who was studying in my great-grandfather's class, Rabbi Yisrael Nevler, and in those days in Russia, it was very common to sell things in the black market because you couldn't really survive any other way. So this boy was taking some glass cups to sell in the black market. His parents gave him these glass cups, and he takes them to the black market, and on the way he's carrying the cups and he drops a cup. So the boy starts crying because a cup means a piece of bread, a few kopecks, a few pennies. So his teacher sees the boy crying, says, pick up another cup. Says, okay. Now throw it on the ground. I said, whoa, one cup is a piece of bread, 2 cups is 2 pieces. What are you saying? He says, take that cup and throw it. And he was a very imposing person, like you said, like he couldn't refuse him. He's his teacher. Okay, so one of his students, I met him when he was in his mid-90s. He remembered this story. He told me the story. He explained it to me. He said he wanted to happen to this boy. This boy's heart should be broader. He should be able to open his horizons. He shouldn't be so caught up in this scenario. Look at it one way. That's the meaning of Rabbi Akiva's laughter. He didn't just know what was going to happen. Something else was going to happen in the future. He was able to live with that now. He was able to see the inside of what was going on. Okay, one last thing. I'll let you guys go. It says in when Hashem appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush, it says that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, "Shal na'alachem al raglecha." Take your shoes off your feet, because the place you are standing is holy. Right? Remember these words? Say the Hasidic masters, the word na'alecha, the word shoes, comes from the same root as the word lach. Why do we get flustered and not know what we're supposed to do, where we are? That way we don't know. Do we feel locked? We feel stuck? Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, you see a burning bush. The meaning of the burning bush is you see people which are struggling. A thorn bush. So Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, Shal na'alechem raglecha, take the lock off your feet. Don't feel the place you're in is a place you're confined to. That is the holy place. That's a place of the Beis HaMikdash. That's where Mashiach comes from. The place that you're in. But you're not locked in that place. You're sent to that place. That's the place you're supposed to be to make it happen. So Hashem should help us. So we should be able to re-examine the moments that and the places and the things that we think are not the way they're supposed to, and to find the Hashem's mission in those things. And we shouldn't need to. Hashem should lessen all the elements that stayed in our own lives. And Bakar of Mamish today, Mamish, we should come to Yerushalayim Rakedesh, Mashiach Tzekenu, and sing Yerushalayim. Not just be able to. It says Mashiach will come, we'll cry. But not only we're going to cry, Mashiach will come, we're also going to sing the 10th song. The Rebbe said the 10th song is going to be a song just similar to Niet Niet Dikavo, the song of There's Nothing Besides Hashem. L'chaim.